Alright, so what's up guys, it's your poor boy FPV coming back at you with the 6S Merica build. We got a jumbled up mess right here we got to deal with, but just wanted to lay all this out here and let you see what we're working with. We've already done an overview of the parts in an earlier video, but what I'm going to be doing to start with, I'm wanting to mount this Acon ESC right here. It shows it going something like this right here. I really don't like the idea of the motor wires coming out the side. I'm wanting to run them out the back, so I'm going to change it and mount it in here something like this, which is going to force me to have to change all the motor wires on my little JST connector again, which it come from the factory wrong to start with. So, but it ain't no big deal. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by showing you my process of how I'm getting to the point of getting all this stuff correct and everything. But let's get this thing going. First thing I want to do is I'm going to sit here and figure out where my wire traces is going. And I see on the flight controller I have motor number 1, and motor number 1 translates to the blue wire. So the blue wire is going to be motor number 1, and then I look and see how the layout is going to be on the ESC, how it's going to set in the quad, and that's showing as far as the layout of the flight controller is. This is going to be motor number 1. The ESC's telling me it's 3. So I'm looking on here and I find ESC 3, and I'm just gonna label ESC 3 as blue, and I'll just go through and check all these traces and do that all the way across. So I find motor number 2, and that's going to be the green wire. And that's showing as motor number 1. So ESC 1 is going to be green, and that's going to be motor 2. And ESC number 3, brown, that's going to be 4. And that will be motor 3. And last but not least, motor number 4, which is going to be white, and that's going to be ESC 2. And that's going to translate to motor number 4. So now all I have to do is just take these wires right here and arrange them in the correct order as they should be. And how I'm going to do that is I have the diagram right here, and I have my new diagram. So what I'll do is I'll lay it in here just like I'm going to be putting it into the ESC, and I'll reverse these wires in the order that they need to be. So what I'm looking at, ESC 3 needs to be motor number 1, which is the blue wire. So I find ESC 3, here's the blue. I'll just go ahead and pull all these out and connect them in like I need to. That'll make it a whole lot easier. I'll get all this done off camera. I always use something sharp, like either a X-Acto blade or something with a good point tip on it. And I'll just pry these little clips up right here. And pull it out just like that. I'm gonna do all this off camera. Okay, so I got all my wires disconnected here, and what I'm going to do is lay them in the order that I wrote on my paper here. So I know that for ESC3 I need the blue signal wire from the flight controller to make it motor number 1. So ESC3 is the one I'm looking for, which is going to be right here. So it's going to, what we're looking at is, this is the telemetry wire and this is my current wire, and I know that this is my battery and my ground. I also have a 5-volt leg right here that I'm not going to be using, so there's going to be a little gap in between right here. So what I need to do is take the blue motor wire and find ESC3, which is going to be 1, 2, 3 over, and connect it in. Which is going to be fun. So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, now green is motor number 2, and I'm looking for ESC1, which is right next to the current wire. So I know green coming out from the flight controller, that's going to be signal wire number 2, and I'm looking for ESC1, which is right next to the current. We'll get this connected in. Make sure that's seated in there good. I'm looking for a signal wire for number 3. That's going to be ESC4. Brown is going to be signal for motor number 3, and that's ESC4, which is on the far end. Making sure to skip that little spot right there. I don't want it right directly next to the power there, because that's 5 volts and that would be a disaster. And this one's pretty simple. We know that ESC number 2 which will wind up being motor number 4. And there we have it. Everything should be as it's supposed to be. Now we'll get on with putting the ESC into the frame. left off two of them. I'll be going back at the end of the build. I'll use all 4 of them. I want all my motors pretty secure. I use the bolts that come with the Catalyst machine work frame. They seem to be just a tad bit longer than the ones that came with the Hyperlight motors, so I went with those. I don't know if you can see the difference there. So the next thing I'll be doing is figuring out my wire length and getting that soldered on. Alright, so what I've done is I just went and put in these bolts right here. That's for the canopy, just to kind of keep the motor arms from swinging around on me while I'm trying to do all this work in here. What I'm wanting to do is just figure out how much length I'm going to need. Just lay this in here really nice and neat like that. And I'll just cut these to length and get these soldered into here. I should be able to get in there with the soldering iron. That's the reason why I mounted this ESC like this. That way if I was to ever break a motor arm or something like that, these things detach pretty easy, so I'll just be able to pop that out and slide a new one in and desolder all this real easily. You got a little opening right here. Makes it simple to get to. I believe if I'd have mounted it the other way, it would have been a little tougher. I'm gonna do all this soldering and stuff off camera. Alright guys, so off camera, got all these wires soldered in. Went ahead and wrapped some electrical tape around the motor wires on the arms and went ahead and put all my bolts in. It's a good idea to make sure you get this little shaft right here center as possible on these arms. So now my next step is going to be stacking everything out. Alright guys, so off camera I went ahead and soldered up my my wires for my receiver, got it bound, and just wanted to check and make sure everything was working, and it is. But like I said, what I've done is flash this receiver with the F port protocol. This is the FR Sky RXSR. When I flashed it with the F port, everything's got to be updated. Flight controller has to be the latest version of Betaflight. The radio has to be the latest version of OpenTX, the latest and greatest Lua scripts installed on your radio, and it worked just fine. So what I had done was freed up UART1, and now I'm able to do everything through the smart port. But we soldered up the smart port wire and just the power and the ground, and it works just great. And I want to show you all these. It's got me pretty excited with all these features that you have, that you'd be able to have in your radio.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Get some power on this flight controller. Alright, hold the page key, and there we have the Betaflight PIDs. We could page some more or hit the menu option. And this is what's really exciting about this Betaflight 3.3. So you can change your rates like normal through the Lua scripts, but you also have all these other extra features, and there's a bunch of them. It keeps you from having to run in and out of the house, back and forth to your computer. You can set your D-term set points, your low pass filters, gyro 1, gyro 2, D-term. Change your low pass filter type instead of having to do it in the configurator. And of course your VTX. and all that stuff like that, your channel power and everything. And it all seems to be working really well. I checked in the configurator.
Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered.
And everything looked great. Alright, so we got the flight controller button down good. And I'll be able to handle everything else from right here. Get my VTX camera control, camera signal, and all that stuff connected in. And I believe I'm gonna change this out right here, this little antenna, to maybe a TBS black sheep clover antenna. And I'll just mount this down in here like so. That'll go right there. And do something of that nature. It's a pretty simple build. Seems like it was going pretty quick, a lot faster than the other ones I've done. Lots of other ones I've done. So I'm gonna take care of getting all these wires and stuff placed, getting the VTX powered, getting my signal. Go ahead and get the smart audio hooked up. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I decided to go ahead and I'm gonna connect all my power and everything for my camera off of the flight controller, and I'm gonna power everything from my VTX off the flight controller as well. Since I got a nice neat little solder pad here, I can get the full voltage of the battery right here. And it seems like the Hyperlight has a pretty nice back on it, so I'm gonna try it out and see how well it works. But if I don't like the way my video footage looks, I'll change it around and power it off of the VTX. Alright, so all I have left is just to solder up my power wire from my camera to my 5 volts out from my VTX. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm unsure of this back right here. I know that you can get really good clean video from the TBS Unify Pro, so that's kind of, I'm just going to lean toward that. I want to go with a sure bet instead of one I'm unsure about, so we'll just connect this up right here and everything will be done except for buttoning it up and adding a JST to the end. So when you see this thing again, it should be a complete drone. Alright, so I run into a little bit of a snag. Got so many wires running right here in JSTs. It's not going to butt together very well, so what I'm going to try to do is possibly either put the receiver, the VTX, up here in the canopy, or flip the flight controller and put the receiver on top of the flight controller, which I might do that if it'll work. Alright, so here we have it, guys. It's all buttoned up and complete. Everything's nice and tidy and neat. I left this XT60 a little long here because I believe I'm wanting to put a black XT60 connector on there, so I left the wire a little extra long. That way I could trim some off. But and I'll be changing this antenna right here out. This is just temporary to test to make sure everything's gonna act like it should, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna work just fine. But my next step will be is going into the Betaflight configurator and just getting this thing all configured and BL heli and make sure the motor direction's correct. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video as much as I did enjoy building it. And like I said, I don't do this for a living. This is just something I do in my spare time as a little hobby. And right now it's going to take this is the only 6S drone that I have in the house right now. I've mostly been racing 4S, so I'm gonna have to maybe wait a week or so before I get a 6S battery in here, and I'll bring you some flight footage. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you would, hit that like and subscribe. And this is your poor boy FPV. Peace out.